I'm Candace, and I once again made Arezou watch a Snow White thing from my past. I made her watch Happily Ever After, which was a 1989 animated musical fantasy film that was actually released in 1993 in the United States.
I knew at the time in the 90s what this movie was. I distinctly remember it being in Jumbo Video, which I don't even think GTA people remember. I think it was like a one-off. But I remember being in the video store, asking my mom if we could rent it. And I distinctly remember her saying no. I don't know why.
She knew.
I don't know why she said no. But in retrospect, that was a good idea because she was like, my children will lose brain cells. Because I'm pretty sure I lost a few watching it this time.
My parents said yes at the video store. And I vividly remember this cover, of her like sitting down with the dwarfettes. So this is a Filmation production, and Filmation was like in the 80s. What if we just made sequels to all these Disney movies, but they weren't actually
on them at all?
Yeah. So they had developed a plan of like Pinocchio, which actually came out. They did all these different ones, and Disney was like, hold up, Filmation, hold up. And there was a lot of issues with Filmation to begin with. So Walt Disney's production chairman, Jeffrey Katzenberg, and spokesman regarded the projects as blatant ripoffs. And this led to a lawsuit by Walt Disney Company in 1987 following Pinocchio and the Emperor of the Night, which sounds really disturbing, and I don't want us to watch it.
I won't watch it, so it's not.
Yeah, so Filmation made sure that their characters would not resemble those of Disney's, and the original title of this was Snow White and the Seven Dwarf Fells, and that's why they changed it to Happily Ever After. And they changed the dwarves to lady dwarves.
Do you know what this movie feels like? One, it feels like a sequel to a movie we never saw because it doesn't really feel like a sequel to Disney's Snow White.
Yeah.
And two, it feels like a ripoff of Thumbelina, but it was made before Thumbelina came out. But aesthetically, it's got a lot more in common with Thumbelina. And I didn't check, and I should have, to see if Don Bluth was involved with this at all. I don't think he was. Okay, no. So they're also ripping off Don Bluth because, like, aesthetically, it borrows a lot from that. But yeah, it's like a ripoff of two things completely different, one of which didn't even exist yet. But
and then the prince looks like Derek from Swan Lake.
Yeah.
It looks like a ripoff of things that haven't come out yet.
Right? It's weird.
It is very weird. So the whole premise is, okay, the evil queen.
But he's dressed like Cornelius from Thumbelina. Yes. And then she's got Thumbelina's hair.
Yeah. So the whole premise is it's after Snow White and the prince got together. The prince still does not have a name. He's just the prince. And they're going to get married, but they want to invite the dwarves in person to the wedding. And they're attacked by the evil queen's evil brother. And there's an owl smoking a cigar.
Because of course there is.
Played by Dom DeLuise.
So here's where I was at. Here's the brain cells I already lost 2 minutes into this movie. Was the queen's brother comes into things. And it's like her uncle, whatever. And I'm like, but I thought the queen was her stepmother. Why is he her uncle? Because I forgot that your mother's brother is your uncle. I'm like, it's not her aunt, that's her mother. And then this is where I was at. Now, in fairness, I also have the flu. So that's got something to do with it. But it did take me a long time to realize that your mother's brother would in fact be your uncle.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm really sad for you that it took
that's the brain cells that leaked out of my nose while watching this movie.
Felt very interesting that the evil uncle kept talking about how pretty the prince was.
Wow.
It's like red flag that. I was like, okay.
And like, sure, he is very pretty, but what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, I know. Well, the one good thing that the evil Lord Maliss has is he's played by Malcolm McDowell.
Malcolm McDowell?
McDowell, yeah.
Okay, so first of all, if you name your child Malice, You're not really setting him up for success.
Yeah. Yeah, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
Okay. The other big thing about this difference is, so Dorfell, who are the cousins of the 7 dwarves, who just happen to have 7 cousins, and they work for Mother Nature, who gave them all powers.
Sure.
It's just nonsense. It's just utter nonsense that is insane. And like, okay, so Snow White, they get attacked, the prince gets taken, Snow White runs away. She runs so far, she makes it to the cottage, but she can't make it past the door. It just made me lose.
That's when she just noped out.
She's like, I'm so tired. But I'm like, girl, your adrenaline sucks.
Honestly, like, go inside and collapse.
Yeah, like a normal person.
Right? You know what this feels like? Is it feels like they had an original concept for an original thing and went, no, this has to be Snow White. And like shoehorned Snow White into it.
With the whole like Mother Nature thing and all of them having powers and
the dragon being there for some reason.
They had some big names for the day. Zaza Gabor.
Jaja.
Carol Zaza, yeah. Carol Channing.
Another reason I was like, this is a Thumbelina knockoff.
True. Ed Eisner. Like, but I was like, when I started watching it, it's the first time in like 30 years or something. And when it starts off with like the bad guys singing a song, I'm like, this is not how you hook your children into a movie.
Hey, I think movie musicals fall apart when the music is like not being given that kind of Broadway-esque treatment. And I don't even mean in the vocalization, I just mean in like the formatting and the pacing and like where you place your songs. Has a lot, and then also they have to be written well, and these weren't, but you know. Like, for instance, I don't know, putting your love ballad 15 minutes into the movie. Wish. I'm still salty. It's fine. You can watch
I was thinking
as well.
Wish. I was thinking of Wish too when we were talking about like just like these absurd placements of songs and how they don't forward the plot at all.
The one thing I will say is some of the songs from Wish are catchy in isolation. They don't work in the movie, but they're fine in isolation.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have forgiven everything if At All Costs was a love ballad, but that's a different. I'm still mad about it. It's been over a year.
Oh my God, we brought up Wish. We made it about Wish.
Of course we did.
Okay. Yeah, the thing I remembered was like when Snow White saw her own like mausoleum at the end.
That was messed up.
Yeah, that's what I remember. I remember the cover and I remember the prince, but it was really her evil uncle dragging her and the mausoleum thing. And I'm just like, yep, and that's
the bit where her little gremlin friend turns out to be the prince.
Yep.
I'm like, okay, so first of all, very glad I didn't witness this transformation because that kind of thing freaks me out so bad I probably would have thrown up. 1. 2, I'm like, this has the potential to be super angsty, and this really should have hit, but it didn't because the rest of the movie was bad.
Yeah. It was an interesting plot thing.
Yeah,
didn't do anything with it.
Exactly. Cowards.
Yeah, so they saved the day, happily ever after, blah, blah, blah.
Have you seen it? Did you suffer with us? Let us know below.
Did you grow up with this? Did you rent it at the video store?
Or did your mom also say no?
My mom said yes, and I think that explains a lot. No, she just didn't know. They honestly, like, they didn't know, like, they weren't, like, reading the trades, and, like, they saw like, it was a Snow White adventure. They didn't know it wasn't Disney. This is how people got played.
My mom had, I distinctly remember this, had a printed list of the Disney movies that had been out thus far because she was collecting the VHSs. So she knew if it wasn't on that list, it wasn't a Disney movie. That's why she said no.
Yeah. Again, that explains a lot about you.
With the list, yeah, it really does.
Yeah. Yeah, so let us know. Do you remember the owl smoking a cigar and then coughing a lot? just absurd. Just so many absurd characters that I'm like, what was the point of this?
Money.
Yeah, it was. The thing is, they even changed it from like the Snow White in the title and stuff like that. And at first, like, I wanted to ask you, I'm like, isn't that odd? Because like Snow White is like it's public use. It's been out for a while. But when this was such a blatant cash grab,
I think that's it. I think if it had just been a Snow White cartoon that wasn't like imitating the Disney style or, you know, sort of following the same, I think honestly, I think today they probably could have gotten away with it, but I think at the time, because Disney was what it was, um, I think they realized it was just, even if they took them to court and Disney lost, it would still be such a protracted legal proceeding that it just wasn't worth it.
yeah. And Pinocchio, I think, was their Pinocchio sequel looked too much like the Disney one, and Disney was like, nope,
That's
can't
the
do
other
that.
thing. It's like dancing too close visually.
Yeah.
Then I think they're running a bit of a risk.
And Filmation was sold, and you won't believe who bought them. L'Oreal.
Okay. That explains her hair.
Let us know in the comments. We hope you have a happily ever after and stay geeky.